The midnight check-in. The Nightshade Inn, perched on the outskirts of Crestwood, had seen better days. Once a bustling haven for travellers, it now clung to the remnants of its former glory, with peeling wallpaper and creaking floors that told tales of decades past. Its latest guest, a man clad entirely in black, checked in just as the clock struck midnight. He was tall, his features obscured beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and his presence sent a shiver down the spine of the elderly receptionist, Mrs. Abigail Finch. "Room 113, she said, handing him the key with trembling hands. He nodded, his voice a low rasp. "Thank you." Detective James Hartley, Crestwood's seasoned investigator, was called to the Nightshade Inn early the next morning. The scene in room 113 was grim, a bloodbath where the inn's silence met its violent end. The victim, a traveling salesman known to frequent the inn, lay sprawled across the bed, his life extinguished with brutal precision. James examined the room, noting the lack of struggle. "He knew his attacker," he muttered, piecing together the fragments of the chilling puzzle. The inn, notorious for its history of transient guests and whispered secrets, had never seen violence like this. As James delved into the investigation, the inn's history unfolded like the pages of a forgotten book. Built in the early 1900s, it had been the site of various misfortunes, unexplained disappearances, and rumors of haunting. But the inn's current owner, Mr. Harold Greaves, dismissed these as idle gossip to keep the tourists intrigued. Interviewing the staff, James learned about the man in black. He asked about the local legends, recounted Jenny, a young waitress, her eyes wide with fear, especially about the old murders from the 50s. Determined to catch the killer before he struck again, James set up surveillance around the inn. The staff, rattled by the murder, whispered about the cursed room and its new occupant, who seemed to vanish like a shadow each night. That evening, another scream shattered the inn's deceptive calm. James rushed to the source, finding another guest, a historian researching the inn's ghost stories, dead in the library. The scene was eerily similar. No sign of forced entry, the victim's throat slashed with surgical precision. The inn turned into a fortress overnight, with guests confined to their rooms after dark, and police patrolling the dimly lit corridors. James reviewed the security footage, catching glimpses of the man in black, always just out of clear view, his movements ghost-like. Connecting the victims, James realized both had explored the inn's dark history. "He's reliving the legends," James concluded, a chilling realization that the killer was enacting a macabre tribute to the inn's haunted past. It was on the third night, as a storm raged outside, that James encountered the killer. The man in black moved with a predatory grace, his knife gleaming in the lightning flashes as he approached another room. Without hesitation, James confronted him, his own gun drawn. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, as the wind howled around them. The killer's eyes, cold and remorseless, met James's. "To immortalize the Nightshade," he rasped, his voice barely audible over the storm, "to ensure its place in infamy." The corridor became a battleground, the echo of their struggle mirroring the tumultuous storm outside. James, seasoned yet weary, fought with the desperation of a man who knew too much darkness. The killer was relentless, driven by a twisted mission to embed himself in the lore of the inn. As they grappled, James managed to disarm the man, sending the knife clattering across the floor. With a final effort, he subdued the killer, cuffing him as backup arrived. Under the harsh lights of the interrogation room, the man in black was revealed to be none other than Christopher Marlowe, a disgraced academic obsessed with the power of myths and legends. His plan had been simple, yet horrifying. to create a new legend for the Nightshade, ensuring his own twisted immortality within its walls. He chose his victims because they shared his fascination with the inn's past. James explained to a stunned room of colleagues. He didn't just want to be a part of the history, he wanted to be the history. In the weeks that followed, the Nightshade Inn became the subject of every news outlet, its bookings soaring with those curious about its gruesome new tale. Harold Greaves, grappling with the morbid reality of his inn's resurgence, decided to turn the site into a museum, dedicating a section to the victims and the man who sought to rewrite history through bloodshed. Detective James Hartley, forever changed by the case, took early retirement, haunted by the knowledge of how deeply darkness could dwell in the human soul. He often passed the Nightshade, now a quiet monument to human folly, and wondered about the stories left untold.